Welcome to the Scottish Property Podcast. This is a show where we aim to educate, inspire and entertain through real life stories and interviews from people in the Scottish property community.
As always, thanks for listening and give us a follow on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember to join us at our monthly networking events on the first Wednesday of every month. Tickets are available on our website. So without further ado, we'll just cut straight into this week's podcast. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of the Scottish Property Podcast. This one's just me and Stephen today, and we're going to give you a wee educational on property refurbs, managing your refurb projects, and trying to come up with a smooth process. Stephen, did I see somewhere that you're back on the tools?
Nonsense. But do you know what? This is a quite an important subject as well, because when people join our Facebook page, Scottish Property Podcast we asked them some basic questions on what they're wanting tips, what they want covered in the podcast, what their experience level is, and a lot of times people do say it's always pulling their hair out, tips and tricks on how to manage a project efficiently.
I think it might be one of the scariest parts of the puzzle, because you're dealing with a lot of uncertainties. You're dealing with people. We know what happens with humans. Things can go wrong a lot of time. Do you know what I mean? I
think it's one of the biggest misconceptions with property as well. Like, that's one of the biggest things I get is, you must be so handy to DIY if you're involved in property. And it's like, no, for the first 10, 12 years of me being involved in property, it was the slowest part of my growth, because I was trying to do that, thinking you needed to be on site, needed to be learning how to strip it out or tile or do the rewire. You don't. Now my growth's went exponentially because I've outsourced that and I've got, understand the process more to manage and bring people in and do it.
But looking back on those early days when you started out, I mean, I always thought that I've got a better understanding of property and all the ins and outs of plumbing, how electrics and that work and how things go under the floors, because I did do that work at the start, which I thought was good experience.
I think it's good experience, it's valuable experience, but I think I'm too fucking pig-headed with stuff like that, and rather than trying to understand it more over a 10-year period and become almost that expert level, you didn't need to. I needed to understand the basics and understand, like you say, do a couple of these projects and then go, okay, right, let's get people in and do it. Now I understand the process, I can manage the process. So stepping away from it earlier is better, but you don't necessarily need to have these skill sets.
Right, okay, so this podcast is aimed at, obviously, people who are starting out. Hang on till I get this mic right. The guys in the background here tell me to sort this mic out. Is that alright? Right, sorted. Right. So this podcast is aimed at obviously giving tips to listeners who are starting out with their refurb projects, right? So where do we start if you're new to this?
It might not be starting out, because you know yourself, there's people that get caught out, experienced investors and experienced developers still get caught out by selecting the wrong trades or getting the wrong product that they're trying to do. So yeah, it's quite important. No, it's not just for beginners. This could be for anybody that's trying to manage a project.
First step, project objective, right? What is it you're actually trying to achieve? Are you doing a buy to let, a buy to renovate and refinance, a BRR strategy? So you've got to get a strategy right. Obviously, what are you doing? A flip, buy to flip?
Well, this is key, because if you're starting to put together a work scope for your project, you need to understand what your exit is. And where you're going to, if you've got a set budget and your X is a buy to let or your X is a flip, the refurb is going to be very, very different, isn't it? And also, what's the exit to your portfolio? If you're going to hold it for 20 years, would you go and do a rewire? Whereas if you're going to flip it and the wiring is good for another 5 or 10 years, are you going to do a rewire? No, the electrics are good.
Because how much is your actual buyer looking into these things?
They're not. So where you allocate the budget is so important, depending on what the strategy is. So I think you're right. I think that's definitely the starting point.
And importance of budget, again, like you're almost reverse engineering, because you're looking at your exit and you're looking at your value and your end value. And then you're going to work back always to get that budget, aren't you, for your refurb effectively?
Well, you've effectively set that budget up front when you've negotiated the price of the property, because you know that, okay, I'm ready to sell this flip project and I want to make 40 grand profit. You know exactly what your costs are, your buying, holding and selling costs plus your renovation costs. So you've got that cost up front when you buy the project. So your budget's almost set at the beginning from when you've done your due diligence on the property.
Can you give us any examples where you've gone way over budget?
Fuck yeah.
What kind of parts of the refurb would you say is it quite easy to lose control over?
I think I often go over the budget through a bit of design on it that that you can you know you can spend more money and get a lot higher finish or a lot better quality finish, or you can spend money putting a dormer in and open up a certain space that's going to unlock an extra bedroom or an extra bathroom that's going to give you more value. So sometimes the over budget is by design of, do you know what, we can actually make more money here by spending a wee bit more money. And if you look at the effort versus reward, it weighs itself up to do it. But yeah, I've went over budget before during COVID when material prices shot up. Timber materials,
which was kind of out of your control, right? Nobody
yeah,
knew
but you still need to have a
gonna...
good buffer sitting there aside for it to make sure that you can catch anything that's unforeseen.
One of the things that I reckon, which is really difficult, is literally when you're starting with no knowledge at all, how to actually price a refurb when you're setting that budget. If you've got no experience and you've never done a rewire or fitted a new boiler or anything like that, like, or repainting a 2-bedroom flat, like, where do you start?
This is where you need to rely on your network. I mean, everyone's got a network, and I'm sure everyone's has a tradesman in their network. Like, someone's going to know a family, any friends, family friends that are going to be either a builder, a joiner, sparky, plumber. Like, they're going to have those trades. Get them along to the viewing with you. And when you're pricing something up and you say, no, this is what I think is worth, how much is it to fit that bathroom, how much I think the kitchen would be. Try and bring these people along to the viewings with you. If they know you, or they're friends with you, or your family, they'll help you out. They'll come along.
I think they'll just tell you to fuck off.
That's what I'm saying. If you start with that close friends and family,
got better things to do with my time and come along at a property reviewing me. No, I'm kidding. Listen, I'll tell you a good tip, right? I saw recently. Go on the Scottish Property Podcast Facebook group. Look up, I think it was Gemma and Lewis that we've had on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Lewis, who runs Prime Property Auctions, and when they do their refurb projects, they are very generous with their information. They put up like a full breakdown of all the refurb costs. Mm-hmm. So just type that in on the Scottish Property Podcast Facebook group. You'll see all the breakdown of all their past refurbs, and it's a good starting point, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's a really good starting point. The thing I'd be cautious of that is that Glasgow based.
Yeah,
the prices vary from Edinburgh to Dundee to Aberdeen, and it depends on where you are. And I think that, if I remember right, that was quite a high-end West End property in Glasgow that they done.
I think the last one was, I don't know actually know if they put the breakdown, but
so I'm pretty sure that when a builder comes out to look at that, there's definitely a little bit of a premium getting put on that. Whereas if you're doing a 1 or 2 bed ex-council flat in a more deprived area, the builder's probably looking at it going, okay, I can't charge that amount for the same, might be the same amount of rewire, might be the same amount of plastering work, but there's going to be a bit of a price point difference. Give
us figures just then, just so listeners can at least go on something. I mean, you're not going to hold us to this, right? But obviously you've done a few 2-bedroom renovations up in Aberdeen over the last few years. What would be a kind of estimated budget? I mean, it can be a range.
Full refurb, kitchen, bathroom, bit of heating, plastering, strip wallpaper, flooring, carpets. Probably range between 14 and 16 grand.
Yeah, that's
bits, yeah.
Yeah, it just gives the listeners something to start with, and obviously that is going to be hugely different if you're going to be buying a house to, renovate and sell on as a flip project. I mean, give us an example of what you spent on Bridge of Erne, to be honest, to
almost 100 grand, I think.
So you're
hugely different.
It's a totally different type of project. And that's where you're setting the expectations and setting the plan out right from the start.
Well, that's it. I was training our new portfolio manager up on refurbs. Like, a couple of tenants have been vacating the properties up in Aberdeen, so we've been doing little renovations on it. And I did this is how I would pick out a kitchen and get the kitchen, and I end up doing the kitchen pick out from B&Q on their balsamia grey, like matte grey finish, and it's perfect for buy to lets. You'll spend an extra £200 because it comes flat pack and they don't have to build it, and they'll fucking curse you as they're building them. But if you're going to get the like for like kitchen from Howdens or Magnet or these suppliers, you'll pay 2 or 3 grand. It costs 930 quid. So you have to have the knowledge and the expertise to kind of pick out what you need to pick out, how you're designing it, because you're doing the whole thing. But the saving's huge. You end up spending very little on a kitchen.
Yeah, and I've not done flips lately. I think my last flip that I did was like 2017 or something like that.
What was your budget then? What was your refurb spend then?
It's going back a few years. But one of the things that I never really factored into my prices when I was doing the kind of, you're just thinking internal, bathroom, kitchen, all the rest of it. Obviously now that I speak to a lot of other investors and developers on a regular basis, they're saying great money spent on staging.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is the thing that looks like, for me, good money well spent. And also landscaping, gardening as well.
Yeah, it's something I do spend quite a lot of money on. I just put together the renovation budget for the next flip, 65 grand for the budget, and then and $5 grand for staging alone. And usually I would have just tried to incorporate that into the renovation budget, try to skimp throughout the project, and then whatever I'm left with at the end, I'll spend on the staging. But I think the staging is that important now. We always follow the American trends, didn't they? And they've been staging for, God, a long, long time.
Talk to us about permissions, like planning permissions, building warrants, that sort of thing. When does that come into play? I mean, obviously, if you're doing just a new kitchen, new bathroom and all that, you don't need to bother with all that stuff. But at what point do we need to be worried about that sort of stuff applying to local authorities?
Any internal changes technically requires a building warrant. It might just be a small change, but it still needs you to apply for the right consent. If they don't require it, at least get it in writing from the council to say they don't require it, because when you go to sell it or refinance, at least you've got the proof to say, I submitted this request to you. We've got proof from the council to say that this wasn't warrantable work, and then obviously it's not stalling your sale or your refinance. So yeah, the minute you get a project and you've got some ideas, speak to an architect, but again, speak to an architect that's not trying to design fucking grand design houses. Like, they're not coming up with, if you put a glass front on this, speak to someone that's on the same commercial wavelength as you, to go, I'm on this 200 grand house, I'm not going to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on it, I'm going to spend limited budget, I want to increase the value by spending as little as possible, by doing as much construction work and expensive work as I can. So speak to the architect, let them know what you think the plans is, let them come up with ideas for you as well. They might come up with good suggestions. Look, you can remove that wall, you can put a dormer in there cheap, and you'd be able to probably unlock other space here. So they may be able to come up with other suggestions for you. And
watch this stage, because obviously it depends what local authority you're dealing with, what council you're dealing with, but some of them can be painfully slow as well.
And that's why you want money. Yeah, absolutely. You want to get an architect in there quite quickly. There's been projects before I've done in the past where you're looking at converting it into 2 properties or 4 properties, or you can keep it as a one individual one, and you actually look at by the time I go through the planning game, and by the time I actually then split the services and get individual gas services, individual electricity services, you go and speak to SGN and they say, well, it's going to be 4 months, and then your architect tells you that the planning's going to take 3 or 4 months, and then you've got to put a building warrant at the back of it. You go, well, if I'm on a bridging loan for an extra 6 months, is the extra profit worth that hassle and that delay? No, let's just stick it with the one house, and we just submit a quick building warrant, start the work quite immediately, and we can exit a lot quicker as well.
That was a good point raised, actually, about services, gas, electric, water, all that sort of stuff. If you're trying to get a gas supply ran in, you could be talking a wee while to get that in as well.
These can be painful as well, like particularly looking at your EPC and trying to get your EPC improved. You might want to bring in gas to get the energy rating down, rather than using electric heating. So yeah, you need to look at all these things at a holistic point of view up front as you're planning that project to fit your budget, fit your exit. And this is where things get, like you said before, I suppose, whenever you went over budget is when a new idea comes through, or you think you've spotted a new opportunity in the market where there's a huge demand for X amount, right? Let's pivot and do this, change this project and do Y. And obviously then your budget that you put out up front just gets blown out the window. But then the project changes, the end values change, or the end sale price changes, so you can accommodate for that.
So that's the kind of planning sort of stage, getting everything planned out, getting ready to go. You pick up your keys, you walk in, you're like, right, where do I start?
First thing you do is go to B&Q and buy a lockbox and screw the fucking thing up. Like, it drives me nuts when people are like, can you go and grab a key? Oh, I need to go and get the plumber to drop the key off. Who's got the key for that? First thing you do, £20 for B&Q, and screw a key box up and put the key right in there, and then change the code, and every single person that you get out to go and quote for it or go and look at it, you don't need to be on site, and no one loses a key. Put the key in the key box, lock up at the back of you. It's the number one rule.
Mate, I've got about 200 lock boxes dotted about Glasgow.
Mate, I should have bought shares in that company years ago.
Honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's tip number one.
My bugbearer though, before we move on from lockboxes, see when you give the code to a tradesman, then you go in after them and they've been too lazy
to change it,
to scramble it. You're like, what the fuck are you doing, mate? All you had to do is run your thumb over it.
Like, that's one of my fucking pet hates.
And that screams, like, straight away, you're like, this is a lazy fucker I've got in here. The work it's going to be pish.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was up in Aberdeen actually last week. You might be listening to the podcast, but I had to phone the joiner that had the key in his pocket. Like, that's the reason why there's a key box here. So I don't need to phone anybody.
Yeah.
I don't need to chase anybody for a key. I'm here checking the project. Where's the key? Oh, I've got a pocket bill on around 10 minutes. Now I'm waiting for 10 minutes and I'm coming along for it. It's like, fuck, that's what the key box is for.
So we could be in danger of going off and rants here about tradesmen, but do you know what? There's loads of good tradesmen that we've come across that we work with now, that we've had the chance to build up a good team and all this. That there's good tradesmen listening to this podcast as well. I know 100% for sure. So this is not laying into tradesmen by any means, but it's just humans, and generally any human, you'll get good, bad, and ugly.
They've got one of the biggest skill sets that, you know, most people don't get into property because they think you need this skill set as a tradesman. They've actually got the skill set. If they just open their mind up to learning the other bits on how to source and how to negotiate the property for the right price, they'd be phenomenal property investors. And
you could have equally a conversation about letting agents, how fucking letting agents are, there's so many pish letting agents and all this. So this is not a dig to any tradesman if you're listening. How do we get good, reliable tradesmen and build up that team? Like, what sort of vetting process do you go through? You know, do you just get a builder or somebody to manage the full lot, or do you get individual trades? What's your thoughts on that?
It depends on what you're doing. Skill set, resources you've got available to you. I've never used a builder to project manage the whole thing because there's a cost to that. There's a huge cost to that. They're going to put their markup on the materials they grab. They're going to put the markup on every single guy they get out on it as well. If they don't employ them, they're going to sub them in and put a markup on it. So you're using their guys at their prices and at their markup, and you're paying for that privilege. Now, again, it depends on if the project budget allows it. Brilliant, but generally speaking, I've negotiated the property to make a certain profit margin based on my calculation of the renovation. If I got a builder out, he'd probably end up saying 30 or 40% over my budget. So I'm like, well, I can't pay that. So I generally end up managing the trades myself, just through experience as well.
I was interested to see when you were doing a lot, when you were investing heavily in Aberdeen. I know you still do, but you got Trish on board, didn't you? She was project managing, because you used to do all the project management yourself and deal with the trades and all this. Then you got to a point where you kind of outsourced that, but that was still working for you, right?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
So if you can find somebody like Trish,
find a project manager to project manage the guys for you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's not enough Trishes about Scotland. No. That's the problem. She's good at what she does, isn't she?
There's quite a few guys that are popping up that are actually realising there's an opportunity to project manage refurbs for investors, and it's a good niche to be in.
But so this is Trish Crooks if you're listening. So we give her a shout out because she's a part of the podcast team. Runs the events up in Aberdeen. She project manages. But I guess the only issue, like you said, about cost is a project manager is in effect a kind of builder in a way. They're taking their cut as well. Yeah, but if you spend a couple of grand to a project manager over a period and they take care of you, that's just freeing up your time to go on, especially if it's one that you trust, and they can keep an eye on they can procure the materials, or they can keep an eye on the trades and make sure they're on budget, on time, and stuff like that. And so you're getting cheaper
long run
builder.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the 2-bed flat you mentioned. If you're spending 15 grand on a 2-bed flat refurb and you pay a project manager a couple of grand to manage it, you're coming up at 17 grand. But if you got a builder out to just go, there's the keys, I'm going to come back in 6 weeks' time and get it, you might be looking at 25, 26 grand for them to come in, because they're not going to go to B&Q and handpick your kitchen for you and flat pack it. They're going to go to Howden's and go, here's my drawing layout. They're going to design it for you, charge them a premium for it. It's going to come with a fully built rigid back kitchen that's easy for them to install. So they're going to do what's easy for them, but that kitchen might cost you 3 or 4 grand. Or they're going to go to a merchant's for the bathroom suite rather than going online for it, which will save another couple of grand. They're going to just do whatever's easiest for them, but you'll pay for that privilege.
Tips on finding the right trades in and good trades. I've got a few that I can share, but you got any?
Yeah, word of mouth is the best one, isn't it? Going online and asking someone.
Instagram's quite good these days, even for tradesmen as well.
Definitely, aye. If someone cares about, that's a good point. If someone cares about their skill and their craft enough, they'll have an Instagram page and a social media presence where they show off what they're doing. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I find as well the kind of forward-thinking ones, and the ones that the tradesmen that they're a bit more savvy with stuff and use their initiative a bit more as well, can be the ones that are quite active on social media. Yeah, too. I've kind of found that, because literally, like, I've had tradesmen in the past where you need to be there all the time, looking over them to make sure everything's done. You just can't trust them to kind of get on with it.
Yeah, and that's it. You've always got that balance up between the price point of, okay, he's cheap, but I need to spend my time looking after him, or do I pay a premium but get someone that's quality that I don't need to worry about and I can get on with my business and my job. And I've probably been guilty of that in the past, a lot of going for the cheap guy, but ends up just causing you time, effort and hassle that you could have been spent elsewhere. So yeah, try not to think. I mean, I know it's quite difficult when you're starting out because every penny's a prisoner on the project, so you want to try and go for the cheapest quote, the guy that's the most cost effective, but they tend to be...
The social proof is good now though, because like you're talking about word of mouth. Literally we can have word of mouth on social media now as well.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty easy to tell. If somebody's busy, and regularly posting like the stories and stuff like that. Let's say it's a roofer or something like that, and he's out every day putting a wee video up and stuff like that. He's busy for a reason, because he's good.
The thing is, there's so much demand for trades right now. Like they're in huge demand that I think even the shit ones are busy.
Yeah,
so it is. Yeah, I think it's quite hard to distinguish between how busy they are because there's that much work. There's an abundance of work at the moment.
If they're doing videos and that though, I often think that they've got pride in their work.
Pride in their work, yeah. The showcase that.
So they're not going to put up videos as a shit job, because people are going to call them out as well. Yeah. And you know what social media is like? It's vicious. Especially tradesmen, by the way.
Yeah.
Have you seen tradesmen's comments? Like if Jamie Home Rewire, Jamie Curry, who does the Home Rewire Scotland. He puts a lot of social media content out there as an electrician, does full rewires. You want to see the stuff that comes in from like other electricians. Oh, look at that. And they zoom in on every detail, like there's a wee wire, a fuse out of place or something like that. But I mean, they're wanting to pull you up for every little detail.
I think you're right. I've got a couple of friends as well that are kitchen fitters and joiners, stuff like that, and they post up pictures of the floor or a cracking kitchen they've posted, and you can see that they've got pride in their work, that they're trying to capture it in the best light that they can post on social media and show off. And yeah, I think that's right. It's probably quite a good telltale.
Another thing that I find good is obviously networking. So if you come to our podcast networking events just to get around other people and share the contacts, like we've set up a WhatsApp group aside from the Glasgow podcast event, and there's literally a spreadsheet there of tried and tested tradesmen, who you're just not going to get bumped from. That are decent quality and a decent price.
That's what I like about the community we've got as well. Like people will ask for a tradesman in Angus or through in Glasgow, and there'll be people in that area, investors in that area, that are like, "Yep, I've used this guy before. Here he's here," and you're getting. I wouldn't stick my neck on the line. Like, no. I'm not going to recommend Nick as a letting agent if I don't know that Nick's not a good letting agent. Do you know what I mean? So if you've got someone in the community that we know, it's a small circle, isn't it? As much as there's probably hundreds of investors up and down the country that are part of our community, we know it's a small network. If you piss somebody off or refer someone that does a shit job for you, it's going to reflect badly on me. So if someone is in our industry and referring a tradesman, I generally believe it'd be quite a good referral.
I used to do some mental shit when I started out. Like I would get a cold. Like I wouldn't get a word of mouth. I would get somebody totally like cold off of Gumtree or Facebook or something like that, and I would phone them up and like, "You interested in this job? Yeah, no bother." Right, and then I would be like, "Right, give me your last 2 customers. I'm wanting references." So I would phone them up and all that. If it's a bathroom fitter, I'd be like asking them questions. Did this guy do a good job and the rest of it? I would then want to go out and actually see the job as well. Like
that's some level of due diligence.
Like I was like pure, like this is when I had time. Do you know what I mean? Like I would go out and see the job, and the guy would get me into his like customer's job and that, so I could actually see what I was going to get, what the end product was. Do you know what I mean?
Even the fact that he's willing to do it for you probably shows that he's fucking.
I bet you a lot would just tell you to fuck off.
But now they would.
Now, but this was back probably, this was like 2014, 2015, when there probably wasn't that much work about. So people were bending over backwards.
This is a problem that we've got, and I think this is why more and more people are asking us to cover topics like this on the podcast, because there's a huge amount of work out there. So all trades are busy trying to get someone at a decent price and get someone when you need them to be. It's fucking so hard right now.
There is also the review websites as well, like Check a Trade and all the rest of it. I have used a few of them, but it's hit or miss.
I think it's almost like going into Gumtree and stuff like that. Yeah, they just need to register through the website and promote their business. But
and they're paying a lot for leads as well. So they'd be paying like 25 quid for like your contact details.
The only thing I think about that is, if like, because I know there's so much work in abundance right now. If you were that good at, you'd have 6 months booked in advance anyway.
The good people are not having to pay.
You would need to go into mybuilder.com or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. But then again, the good people, you can't get out quick. That's the problem as well.
Yeah.
So if you're under pressure to do a project quick, then, you know, for the ones that are well booked up, and that's where experience and relationships come, because once you build up a good team and you build the relationships and they know that you're a good fast payer, and, you know, you're going to give them repeat work, and that's where they'll kind of prioritise for you.
That's it. And I'm assuming you're going to get on this topic as well, like, how do you keep your good trades and how do you keep that relationship going? And that's one of the points, is what do they want most? Does your tradesman, does he moan about going out and quoting for 10 jobs and only getting 2, or he sends invoices out and he has to chase payment for 3 or 4 weeks? If these are their pain point, then you solve them. I'm not asking for a quote. I'm not going to take you around my viewings and ask you for loads of quotes, and I'm not going to be able to get the properties. When you get the keys for the property, bring them out, give them the job, and then the minute they've finished the job to satisfaction, pay them that same day. If you do that, and that's killing their pain points, and they're going to keep, like you say, they're going to pick up the phone to you and move jobs around and go, oh, you need this one done in the next couple of weeks? No problem, I'll be around next week. They'll bend over backwards for you. That's
where I struggle a wee bit with the letting agency, because if it's my projects and I wouldn't be wasting folks' time, do you know what I mean, getting loads of quotes, because I'm managing properties for other people who are spending money for the landlord clients. Then sometimes they do, if it's a big job, they'll ask for multiple quotes. So not every time I'm able to follow through with the job, do you know what I mean? But I've still been able to maintain that good relationship, and they know. I just tell them straight, like, I'm getting multiple quotes in for this, so it's up to you whether you want to come out and quote for it, you know. I don't want to waste your time, but I do need to get multiple quotes in for this one, which kind of puts them on their toes a wee bit as well. Makes you get the best price. Getting on to quotes and contracts. So, like, what's a good procedure in terms of, you know, when you're starting out, you don't really know the prices, so presuming you want to get multiple quotes.
Get multiple quotes, but define your work scope. Like, know what you want to spend, and know where you're spending the budget, and make that clear up front. There's no point in you being half-arsed with this at the planning stage and you don't know, because if you start adding on extras during the project, this is when the opportunity that your tradesman or your builder is going to be able to make a markup and go, oh, that's an extra, we want to discuss that. So if you've took the time up front and got multiple quotes, and all of a sudden you've not planned it right and you're adding on extras, that's where the cost is going to get out of control for you. So make sure you plan that right, make sure you know what you're doing. Obviously there's unforeseen circumstances that you're not going to be able to catch, and this is where I still often rip out the properties I get the keys for. Take one day out of my week and go and rip the property out. Like, I just like setting fire to shit, smashing something up with a hammer. It's therapeutic as fuck.
That's your Insta moment.
Yeah, just enjoy it as well. It's a few hours out your day, and then the main business reason I do it for, one, it's helped my mental health, to be fair, but I get to see the scope of the building. When you strip out the kitchen, the bathroom, you get to inspect the subfloors, you know there's no surprises. You know if there's any damp, you know if there's any wood rot, you know if there's anything that's going to come up in the next few weeks that's going to come up and bite you in the arse. That's unsurprising. You're going to see it on day one.
What's your favourite tool?
A sledgehammer.
Keep it basic.
When you get your quotes out and you know that it's not going to, they don't need to remove the kitchen or remove the bathroom and then go, oh, your subfloor's rotten, it's going to be an extra 600 quid. You've already stripped it out, so you know what you're expecting. So I think that one day, on day one, when you pick up the keys, your key box, your keys, screw it up, isolate your electricity, your meter readings, isolate your electricity, isolate your gas, and start ripping the fucking thing out. That's when you actually uncover any problems, and you know from day one. So when you're getting the quotes, and there should be no surprises. It's all uncovered.
I love a sledgehammer. I also love the ripping up tiles, floor tiles that are put down with shit adhesive that are dead easy to lift. Easy. Do you know what I mean? Like one of those chisel drill things, hammer drills with that big chisel bit in the end, just like lifting up these floor tiles, man. Lovely. I don't particularly enjoy see if you get a top floor flat and you're up and down. Oh my god, remember the days of lugging up like packs of laminate flooring and all that? Oh fuck, I would well recommend getting a labourer for that. Get yourself a Stevie for that. Used to do that, did you know?
I was looking
before you got promoted to the social media.
I was looking at that. I'm sure we lifted 900 square metres herringbone flooring up the top floor flats in Spittal over a day.
That's brutal, man.
I think it was about 3 tonne flooring.
Yeah.
So,
Talking about getting labourers, though, you did try that, didn't you? Try to go down.
We tried an agency route
stuff like
to pull in guys. That was a fucking flop. Like, there's a reason why they're at agencies.
Communication. How do you set the kind of boundaries and the expectations? Like, again, I'm terrible at this because I read all the books and all that, and I listen to the podcasts, and everybody's like, "Get your scope of works written down," and all the rest of it. But a lot of time, you just go in, you fly by you're going through the property, and
I try and get in right in the scope of works, or if you can't print something off and get them to agree to it, or at least don't have the conversation with it, and then something's been misconstrued in the conversation. You've forgot about something, or they've forgotten about something. Even when you leave that meeting, if their communication's through WhatsApp or text message, write down a text message. Just as discussed, here's the scope of what I'm undone in it, and write it down. At least when you come back to any disagreements later on, no, you price for that because that's what I sent you a message saying. Oh no, you didn't say that, and there's no proof of what's been said and not said. So I think getting the scope of work, either typing up, getting it in writing, or just sending an email or a text message or WhatsApp, as long as there's some kind of refer back to.
And the communication is so key as well, because if you can get a good tradesman or a good builder that's quite good with, like, even taking videos, like video walkthroughs, updates and stuff like that, you can pretty much manage a project remotely as well, and you've got that confidence that things are progressing. And if they can be on board with that, with videos and that, it just depends who you get. Some are happy to do them, some aren't.
No, but the thing is, they don't even need to be in camera, really. They can just be turning it away, looking at the project, showing you
don't mean
progress.
Don't mean videos,
but
selfie videos.
Absolutely.
Job,
communication's key, and if they get busy and you get busy, it's important that communication stays. If you need a weekly update, make sure you get a weekly update, because a project can kind of fall by the wayside or start slipping in the time frame if the communication breaks
I find it sometimes hard, especially when it's a new relationship. You've got that kind of line where you need to watch. You don't want to be too insulting where you're absolutely going to the actual, but you don't want to presume that they're going to do it that way as well. So, I don't know, I'm trying to give an example of, say, just putting down like wall tiles or putting on wall tiles. Like, so just don't presume, like, if you've got it in your head that you want them to be a certain way,
don't assume that they're going to do it that way.
Don't assume, but then it's difficult because sometimes they take the huff because they're like, well, fucking, who do you think I am? No fucking stupid. Of course I was going to do it that way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You've been in that situation before.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it depends, and I suppose that's at the start you want to try and get as much detail as you can, because they don't know what you like and you don't know how they work, so you've got to probably talk a bit more up front. But as you get to know the people you work with, you'll know how they lay a floor, and you'll know which way they
maybe send them some design pictures or something like that.
I really like the tiles done brick effect. There you go.
So ongoing through the project then, project management tips, timeline management strategies for keeping the project on schedule, including setting clear milestones and buffer times. This is one that I always struggled with. You would get somebody in, you would get to the end of it, and then you would sit a couple of days, or there would be like a few days went past and the property was just empty. So it's trying to get that fluid kind of, like, one trade's in, that one's done, get the next guy in. That's
the hardest bit to manage, is to knowing the order of what things need done. And that's when people start out, they probably use a builder because they won't know. But if you use a builder straight off, you won't learn. But if you're understanding that process and what needs done when, you can actually time it in your schedule. The only problem is with shit like that is, this painting's been done, the plaster's meant to be done 4 days ago, so it dries. Oh shit, he didn't come, he's a week late, now it's knocked the painter out. So you could do have a knock-on effect that the plumbing's not been roughed in the joiners to fit the kitchen. So,
and you're relying on so many working parts and so many different people, so you're just like, again, you're relying on people turning up when they say they'll turn up. That's one of the big problems, isn't it?
I think to do it, if you're doing that as well, you don't need to do it so tight. Like, I've always been guilty of that before. You try and make it so tight, but let's face it, you don't need it to be that tight. Sometimes it could, if it takes a couple of months to do the project, let it take 8 weeks rather than 6 weeks or 5 weeks. There's a need to take that, give it that buffer, and make sure you've got a buffer a few days between each one. So if he doesn't show up on the Monday and he said he's going to show up, at least chase him till he comes in the Wednesday, and it doesn't have a knock-on effect to the next guy that's coming in.
There's so many moving parts as well, because, like, for example, like, even, if you're getting a full house plastered or something like that, there'll be certain walls and stuff like that take longer to dry than other bits, and then you know, for example, like we had a bathroom fitter in one time and he was going full pelt, and then he was in it halfway into the job, and then like the property got broken into, he left his tools in, everything got stolen. It's just a single guy working by himself. Do you know what I mean?
That's his livelihood.
That's him. Fuck, that stalls him. Job grinds to a halt.
One of the things that I would say as well about project managing your own project, it's really important, is I don't rely on anyone to pick the finishes of my property. Like, I don't get a joiner to go and pick a kitchen, or I don't get a plumber to go and fit a bathroom, whereas most people, you know, these theory-based bullshit training courses where they'll say go and hand the keys to a builder and come back 6 weeks later and it's done for you. I think that's a lot of shite. Yeah. One, because who the fuck is a joiner going to dictate what kitchen's going in and what style it is, and who's the target market, who's the audience?
You're come
is it a
back.
buy-to-let? Is it a flip? Who's buying that property? What are they going to pick, a grey kitchen? Are they going to pick a blue kitchen, or are they going to pick a cream one because or they watched Homes Under the Hammer and everyone painted it magnolia, so they're going to paint it magnolia, but that was 15 years ago and now it looks fucking out of date. So don't rely on anyone else to pick your design. You know what your exit's going to be, you know what the market's going to want. Look at what properties rent. If you look at a rental market and you see, their properties are absolutely flying off the shelf, they're in huge demand and they get an extra couple £100 a month for the property, pick that style. Or if you see a flip project where the style has been done for X, Y, Z, and that's, you know, goes to a closing day and goes over the asking price, design your project to suit that. Not, the joiner's going to get me a flooring out of Howdens. How the fuck do you know what the end user wants? Because it's you that needs to do all that due diligence up front, come up with a design that the joiner fits it, not the other way around. But that's when it can cause a little bit of complications with it as well. Make sure that's set up front.
I can enjoy that bit as well. I enjoy trying to get the best prices as well. I think Trish had talked about this on a previous podcast. She was finding prices like, you know, go to like Plum Store or something like that, and it would be like this. But go to like eBay and you can get these fancy black taps or gold taps, and they're just as good. Do you know what I mean?
I enjoy that part as well.
Because they're all coming from China anyway. So you know, whether
I love that part. A lot of times I say this on the workshop is, I put in Portland Rosa tiles in my buy-to-lets. Yeah. And everyone's like, what the fuck would you put £100 a square metre tiles in a buy-to-let? Because I went in and blagged a fucking a Cala Homes discount to the guy at Portland Rosa. She says, it was years and years ago. Yeah. I'm developing this and I'm flipping that and I'm doing this and that. And he's like, give it Billy Big Boys. And he's like, okay, I'll give you this special rate. And the only reason I got it for it was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. I needed it because Kelly wanted these Portland Rosa tiles in the bathroom we were designing, and we went in the showroom, they were £115 a square metre. I was like, I'm not paying £115 a square metre for fucking tiles. And the guy was like, here's the catalogue, the Cala Homes catalogue that the house builders, the high-end house builders use, and the same tiles was £19.75 a square metre. So these tiles went in all my fucking flips and buy-to-lets, and everyone's like, why does your buy-to-lets look so phenomenal? It's the same price as a fucking B&Q. That would look shit. This looks phenomenal. It looks like a high-end, but because you've done negotiations up front, the cost is the same. And people are like, but why would you? I enjoy that negotiation part. I think that bit's fun.
Quality control and snagging. So you've reached the end of the project, or you've gone to inspect the job, and you're like, oh fuck man, this is like, they've made an arse of it here. How do you approach that conversation to, you know, at least maintain the relationship, make sure you get a good end result? Do you know what I mean?
That's always a difficult one as well, because if it's a flip, there's a lot of things you can let slide and it's not really that important. But if you know it's a buy to let and I hand the keys over to you and you're going to be phoning me in the next 4 weeks because the seal's not been done right or the floor's not been run right and it's split, all I'm going to be getting is a maintenance bill to fucking come and fix it. So I'd be like, no, I need that fixed, like, definitely.
Just go straight up.
So straight up, and that's always why you keep that bit of payment, you know, back. Keep enough that it's worth the while to go back and fix Snagging. Like, don't just leave a couple £100 at the end and go, okay, you get a couple £100 when I look through it.
You've been stung there, haven't you? Without going into that, you look back in previous episodes and
leave a few grand, like leave a third of the payment at the end. Like, let me just go and look at it before I pay it, and just make sure that it's done to your standard before you pay it.
And don't be pressurised as well, because I did literally have a guy who was doing a bathroom for me, and I couldn't be there on the day that he finished it. And I kind of felt bad for the guy, because he's a decent guy and he looked like he was doing a good job because he was sending me photos and all the rest of it. But I was like, look, I can't make it on Saturday. It'll need to be Monday.
Aye.
And he was like, kicking off. He was like, no, it's not acceptable. I need paid now. Blah, blah. And he was like, full on. And again, that's where it's like, I should have set the expectations right from
Yeah.
the start. But you're not going to go into detail. I only work from Monday to Friday. I'm not going to be there on Saturday.
Yeah.
You know, can you wait till Monday? And he was kicking off over the weekend. I was getting stressed out because I had kids, and he was getting quite abusive, like about, I need this money now, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I said, look, I'll be there on Monday. And then I was on Monday, and then it was all the relationship had gone a bit bad. I mean, he did a decent job at the end, and I paid him the full amount. But if I'd paid that on the Saturday and hadn't had a chance
to look at it, and you found the snag, and he was never coming back to fix that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is trying to hold a bit back.
That's they're warning flights and they're warning lights, aren't they? But then again, you can't dictate how someone lives, and like a lot of trades will live, as most people in the country live hand to mouth, month to month, week to week. It's a fucked up thing with our nation, but. So the tradesman's going to put pressure on you to pay the minute the job's done. But I'd be the same as you. Like, I'm not paying it until I've seen it, because I'm not paying for a product. Like,
and part of the argument could be that why should he wait until it suits me, my schedule, you know, to go around and check it? So you can see it from both sides. You know what I mean? But
yeah, no, but I mean, give you warning in advance. I'm going to be finished on Saturday. Any chance you can come and meet on Saturday?
Which I didn't have.
But phoning you on Saturday, that's me finished. Can you pay me now?
He'd already changed the goalpost in the job, by the way.
But it's not about anything else rather than keeping them motivated. If like for that example you gave, if you went up and said that there's something needed fixed and he's being paid in full, he's not motivated to come back. Whereas if he's got a chunk left in the back and he knows he needs to come and fix that, that's going to be top-end priority, because it's now easy. Oh, shit, if I go back and fix that, I'm getting paid for the full job, or getting paid my extra third.
If you're not happy as well, there is kind of like tools you can use now with, you know, tradesmen's. You know, you can literally go on social media and basically destroy their reputation and stuff like that if you need to. Hopefully you don't need to. But if it did go bad and they did do a shit job and they fucked off with all your money and stuff like that, you could use that as a kind of almost like a threat. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go online, basically, if they've built up a good reputation and stuff like that. So they might be more inclined to come back and sort the job out if you go down that. I think
most of them are quite inclined now to fix it, but I think they realise how small the world is with social media.
Yeah,
that do a bad job, it can kind of tarnish their reputation. So yeah, you could.
Well, you would hope that any tradesman that's worth their salt is going to come back and sort and appreciate a longer term relationship as well.
I think the problem that I find is what's a reasonably good standard, because what you think is a good standard and what 10 other people that he'd work for is a good standard is very subjective. What he thinks a good standard is. So yeah, that's what I think's difficult with trades, because they might think they've done a brilliant job. You go in and look at it and go, man, that's fucking shocking, but they think they've done a great job, and you're like, well, I don't think it's a good job. So it's almost balancing that out.
Hurt the guy's feelings.
But this is where I don't understand why a lot of trades do that, because see, for not to say that it's a substandard product, but I won't be pernickety on a project in mind, because like a buy to let, because okay, I'm just needing the kitchen fitted. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not my own house. I don't have to have, the floor doesn't have to be perfectly level, or the grout lines could be slightly off, or I'm not looking for this beautiful perfection. So surely the buy to, but then because surely the buy to let investors, the one that trades would go and jump at, one, they're going to get regular work all the time. They can't charge the premium that they charge that person, but that person would be really pernickety with the finish. So you can almost go churn these out and get paid quicker more often than not.
I get where you're coming from, but I've also had the argument from a lot of tradesmen. Like, I've literally phoned up tradesmen and be like, I'm trying to get a plumber, or I'm trying to get a painter for a job. Oh, you're a landlord? You're a letting agent? No, sorry, mate. Don't work for letting agents. Don't work for landlords, because there's this kind of perception. A lot of tradesmen perceive that we are, trying to scrimp on every penny, and it's not worth their while, because they can access the general public market and obviously charge a lot more, because it's not all about profit.
One of my friends is a joiner, a really good joiner, and he moved to, he did a lot of my work before he moved to Aberdeen, and he moved to Aberdeen maybe 8 or 9 years ago, and I touched base with him, to start doing the work for me in Aberdeen years ago, and I knew his prices would be fucking tasty. Like, he's always been a good joiner. He charges for it, and I tried to get my price some jobs up, and they were just fucking out what you'd pay as an investor. You just couldn't pay that kind of money. And I just said to him, I said, mate, I can't pay that money. And he did a couple of kitchens, did a couple of bits and pieces when the budget could allow it, but most of the time I couldn't use them that regular, which annoyed me, because I know his attention to detail, I know his workmanship, I know he'd communicate with me, I know he's got a good work ethic. There's so much, it's just the price point. And after a couple of years, he'd been up in Aberdeen, and he's a friend, so I'd be going out for a beer or going out for some food with him and stuff like that. You'd hear, oh yeah, I'm out on Queen Road on the West End of Aberdeen, and a £2 million house charging fucking a fortune for this kitchen. He's like, but the guys had me out back and forth 7-8 times for snagging for 3 weeks, not paying me. So yes, he's making a chunky bit of money for this, but all it is hardship. And he's having to then go and get this painter that he brought out because the guy's like, oh no, there's a bit of run there, and that needs rubbed down and done again. So this guy is so pernickety with his job that he kind of, for a while, he did look at it and he went, do you know what, you're fucking right. What's the point in chasing that? I can make $5,000 this week when why not just make fucking $1,000, $2,000 for you, churning out your kitchens and bathrooms and flooring, and I'm not getting any hassle, and I'm getting paid at the end of the week, and I'm getting charged getting paid quickly for the jobs. So there is a balance point between paying for going and chasing the high end buck or getting regular work from landlords and investors.
Brilliant. On that note, I think we've probably covered quite a lot. Hope the listeners have enjoyed that and got some value from it. Obviously, we like to share personal experiences and hopefully educate yourselves too. If you like the podcast, please leave us a review on Spotify. Go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and hopefully catch up with you at one of our networking events as well. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.